Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition to A Coffee Time with Checkin. My name is Stephen Marshall, Head of Sales here at Checkin. Of course, the tool that helps you automate and digitize your entire guest registration process. Today, we are joined by Marcus, CEO and co-founder of Hostaway. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So for those existing users, new users within Checkin, Hostaway is a partner that works in conjunction with Checkin to be able to essentially automate the entire guest registration process. Via Checkin, we can integrate into their property management system, which allows you to optimize the entire communication and guest registration with your guests, essentially allowing you to free up so much time, energy, and make the entire procedure really much more efficient. Marcus, if you don't mind, for those who are unaware of Hostaway, perhaps you would like to give them a bit more information about your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hostaway is a channel manager and property management system, and it's quite different from every other solution out there in the market. We have built the best channel manager in the vacation rental space, and that's not my words. That's Airbnb who tells us that we're a preferred partner. It's Vrbo who tells us we're an elite partner. Booking.com who tells us that we're a premier partner. And we, of course, have about 10, 15 smaller OTAs, but some of them are pretty big names. For example, Marriott and Expedia, the biggest travel company in the world. Now, because we in-house have built the best channel manager, we have built a PMS on top of that. And that allows you to automate everything from guest communication to upselling services to guests. We have a website builder that, at least based on what the feedback is, we launched the latest version 2 months ago. It's the most advanced in the industry, most flexible. Of course, owner statements, managing cleaners. But I think the main reason why people choose us is our marketplace. We have the largest marketplace in the entire industry. We have over 100 integrated software partners.
Wow.
And quite often when a new technology company comes into the space, they want to launch themselves on the largest marketplace. And since that's us, we always partner with the latest technology first before they're given access anywhere else. So a lot of our users are tech savvy. They want to make sure that they can save time and increase their revenues using the latest technology. And that's why they're using us as their PMS.
Amazing. That's great. Yeah, you guys have really started to innovate. We have already so many users that work together between Checkin and Hostaway. The feedback's always positive. And of course, congratulations with the introduction into Marriott. I've seen that in your newsletter recently as well. It's a great new OT that people are going to be able to take a lot of advantage of. And it's really interesting you say how one of the most important things as well is the marketplace. There's so much diversity in property management, Airbnb management, or just short-term lets lately. Whereas, we all want to automate, or we all want to have all of the processes as entirely linked and joined in as possible. And the only way to essentially do that is to open up a world of integrations between all these different platforms. I don't think it's possible to have one single tool that does everything these days, since niches can be so complex and technology is starting to become so much advanced in these different niches, such as ours, which is online and automated guest check-in. The fact that you have such an open marketplace really sort of can broaden the mind of the property manager and what the capabilities are and what they can actually achieve within their own business.
Yep.
Amazing.
That's right.
Perfect, cool. Now, Marcus, I did want to actually pick your brains on a couple of points. So the way Checkin works is we help automate the entire guest registration process. Now, that can be from something really basic to data collection and a digital signature for a contract, but it can be a lot more advanced to ID verification, remote access, as such. Now, a lot of users with Hostaway, a lot of people looking to automate often come to us with a lot of questions regarding what the best process to put in place is, how much data they should actually collect from their guests, and sort of just general feedback on how to offer the guest experience as best as possible. I'm just wondering, with the way technology is working and the way technology is really advanced post-COVID, I say post-COVID, it's still there, but the way it's starting to evolve this contactless experience, how do you think that's starting to maybe affect the guest's point of view? How do you think this technology is working in the guest's favor? Do you think it's, really advantageous for the guest, or do you think there's still things that really need to work out that perhaps isn't the best just yet?
Yeah, good question. So when we look at other industries, it's I think e-commerce is a good example. If you wanted to order something online 22 years ago, back in 2000, it was a wildly different experience than it
Yeah.
is today. And the outcome of doing it, because that experience was different. If you ask 10 people, how was your online shopping experience? They will give 10 different answers. But then nowadays it's pretty standard. You pretty much know what the terms are. You pretty much know what the experience is going to be, and you're most likely going to use a very large provider. Um, Airline tickets have gone the same route. There's not really any hacks to booking an airline ticket. You just go to the airline's website and book it directly there, and that's it. You get the best terms, you get the best price. It's very simple and very straightforward. And thanks to COVID, we have very flexible cancellation terms on all the airlines, so it's you don't even
Definitely.
need to worry about that. Hotels have achieved something fairly similar. They have their own apps, but you can also use aggregator sites. But same as airline tickets, prices aren't that much cheaper unless you go with a special model. For example, last minute bookings that give discounts that are hidden, or other channels like that. However, when it comes to vacation rentals, the guest experience should be seen as a whole solution from beginning to the end. And already at the booking stage, the guest experience is extremely fragmented.
Yep.
And that's because the market is quite often, from an outsider's point of view, is seen as one market, but it's really not. It's hundreds of markets put together, and saying that Airbnb solves that problem isn't entirely true, because the fact is that properties that end up on Airbnb are those for the dates that you want to travel. They are those that are not rented out yet. That's why they're on Airbnb. Now, challenge with that is that if you want the best possible property, you need to have the right connections. For example, let's say if there's one condo that you enjoy, or one cottage village that you enjoy, you need to know the people. You need to ask around, and then all of a sudden they say, "Yeah, you know what? Next February you can have that." And next February never ends up on Airbnb in the first place. But that booking experience is very much like e-commerce 22 years ago. It's very random. You end up doing it in different ways, and the outcome will end up being very different. And that's where a large part of the market is today. So there's a lot to improve there.
Yep.
However, after the booking, if you look at the way you go to a plane today, how that has changed in the last 10 years, the answer is it hasn't. It has not changed one bit. 10 years ago, you could check in online, you could buy your upgrade, you could get on the plane. Today, you do exactly the same thing. There's no changes. However, on the vacation rental side, what you see, and this is what is a challenge for the industry, some people have an amazing experience, a very standardized, clean, and neat experience using software such as Checkin. Others do not. But at the booking stage, let's say you go to Airbnb and you book your place, you don't know what the experience is going to be like. And
Yeah.
compare
Totally.
this to flying a major airline. If you fly KLM and you do that all the time, it's pretty safe to assume that if you fly British Airways, if you fly Delta, it's going to be pretty much the same. But with vacation rentals, we don't have that. And this is where it's important to make big investments into technology to make sure that you, as a property manager, you can stand out, or at least follow the best practices. So
Yeah.
if you were starting an airline today, you would want the same process, same experience that Air France is giving, or American Airlines is giving. You would want that experience, and not the experience that, let's say, Ryanair is giving, because that's not a majority of the cases. And that's why it's so important, because if you don't invest in the technology right now, others are going to do it. And by the time there's a majority that has a smooth experience, and this may take years, it's going to be too late for you to catch up. You're going to get bad reviews and you don't know why. And that's going to be detrimental to your business.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing answer, and it makes so much sense because there is such a, like you say, there's such a vast area of markets now to purchase short-term rentals, and everyone is unique in their own way, and everyone is different in their own way. And I think one of the main advances technology has made in this sector alone in the recent years as well is really the accessibility and the easy acquisition of technology to be able to be adapted to your business. Before we looked at the likes of the Hiltons and the Marriotts in the hotel industry, or such as the large players in vacation rentals. And of course, they have the funds and they have things behind them that will allow them to advance a lot quicker than a lot of the smaller companies. They have development teams, they have their own applications, and they can really look at the market trends, what that will be in 1 to 2 years ahead, and they can start working on it now. Whereas someone that might have one property, 5, even 20, 30, 40, 50 properties might not have, or thought they might not have had the same capabilities of implementing technology to be able to help them with reviews, with the guest experience. And I think that's what we're seeing today is this type of technology. You really just have to be aware of it and have to have sort of the drive to implement it, because it is cost effective. And it is some of sort of maybe the highest developed technology this industry has had lately, and it's accessible to everyone. You could have one property and pay a really reduced fee just to ensure that your guest experience is a lot more advanced, and it's essentially building those positive reviews because you've started to adapt to what society is getting used to. They're being accustomed now to having this type of technology during their stay. And I think that's amazing in what we've started to achieve, because there's no bounds. You don't have to be a Hilton or a Marriott to be able to afford this or provide this technology to the guests. And that's something that, especially here at Checkin, I think that's something that's amazing, because we can speak to a large property manager with thousands of properties, or we can speak to someone that's just around the corner from us with one, but they want to automate and they want to offer more of a revolutionary, so to speak, online check-in.
Yeah, and it's not only the want to drive a good guest experience that will accelerate this development. It's also the need for the business right now. Among our customers, when we ask them what are your challenges, the main challenge is finding the staff. And of course, to give a guest a personalized experience, you need people doing that, which is great. Except if you can't find people. I mean, when the employment market is as it is, there is over full employment. It means that there is a negative amount of unemployed. In fact, it means that there's people who have 2 jobs, but there's nobody who has 0 jobs. Now, if that's the case, you can't simply hire anyone anymore. And no matter how much you'd want to give that personal experience, the next best thing you can do is technology. Of course, technology can actually deliver a better experience as well, because the margin for human error is a lot smaller. Of course, the flexibility isn't there. But on the other hand, the amount of choice and accuracy is a lot higher. But I think for a lot of property managers today that are facing these challenges, there simply isn't a choice. I mean, imagine a hotel without a front desk.
Yeah.
That's something that's expensive to build to give the same experience. But if you're forced to do it because there's nobody in the world who is willing to stand at that front desk at no price whatsoever, then you have to build it. And that's what we're seeing today in the vacation rental space.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, on top of that, it's building something that allows you to really hyper personalize it to the point that sort of fits your brand and what you're looking to offer to your guests. It's having that freedom of choice of color scheme, modern design, having this feature or that feature available. And yeah, the options are just so flexible that these days that if we can't do it because there are lack of employments, which is true, I'm located here in the UK in Edinburgh, and there's so many hotels that are understaffed at the moment. So all those administrative tasks are getting really left behind, and they're not being able to catch up. So at least looking at ways, if it's not from the guest perspective, even just ways to automate administrative tasks within a property manager or hotel, such as legal compliance. we offer a lot of legal compliant functionality. So in a lot of countries in Europe, for example, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Austria, and many others, there are so many legal compliant components where you have to register specific details of the guest to specific authorities. And if you don't have that automated, effectively, you're at the end of every day putting one by one these reservations. And that's something that takes up a lot of time. It moves your important tasks out of the way because it's something that you have to deal with. So if you're able to essentially just automate some part of that, you're still going to be able to better the guest experience or better your own experience in other areas. And that actually brings me on to my next question. I think that's a good transition. Automating is great. But what I've been curious to know, especially from your point of view, because I ask a lot of people this, is when does automation go too far? Let me put a little bit of context there. So when Airbnb and short-term rentals started to really boom not so long ago in reality, it was all about making this process that was as simple and as easy as possible for the guest, not asking them too much information, just making sure that they had what they needed and they could access the property, which is great. But now we're finding a lot of companies and a lot of people ask for our advice as well is I'm automating this. And for example, I need to collect data from the guest. But how much data and how much do we actually ask from the guest is too much. Um, and I think this is a really important point because we as an Airbnb business, for example, we want to ensure that we have a high level of security to be able to combat fraudulent activities, data protection, chargebacks, etc. But we also don't want to go as far enough to say that we're making the guest uncomfortable for the amount of information that we ask from them. Now, this is easy in legal compliance countries because by law we need to ask for this information from the from the guest. In Dubai, yes, we have to receive a photocopy of the document or a passport or an ID card for people that are staying in properties in Dubai. Whereas in the US, for example, we don't. I'm just worried. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on how people manage the amount of information that they actually want to get from the guest, whether that's IDs, verification, data, etc. And how do you know that that's enough to not only cover your own back, but you're also making sure that the guest feels comfortable as well? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is a common problem with property managers because I will use an example here. I heard it was a short-term rental place in Florida, and the guests gave feedback. They said there's too many signs. You know, someone stole the items from the pool and took them to their home, and then they put up a sign, "Don't steal items from the pool." And then someone threw the garbage in the recycling bin, so they put a sign, "Don't throw garbage in the recycling bin." And eventually there were so many signs that that no message was really read. You know, you looked anywhere you look, there's 10 signs. One says don't stand in the way of the elevator door, and so on. And it just doesn't apply. And I feel that's the way a check-in process is. It needs to be relevant. The guest has to understand what's going on and why is it going on and what's going to happen. So and this, I think it needs to be tailored to the property and who the people are, because you don't want to take something. I mean, you don't want to take the guests' time without giving them something in return.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that nobody likes. If you call customer support at any company, you're happy to get support, but what you don't want is to wait in line. Now, if you're eager to, let's say, get into your property, get the key code to your smart lock, then you don't want to stand in line. So that's why I mentioned those signs. You don't want to put up a bunch of signs and ask for a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. What you do want to do is keep a very strict balance there between what's good for the guests, where are they getting value. I mean, well, one example I had, I could share a personal example. They during the check-in experience, during the check-in procedure, they were using a software. It was a website on my mobile phone where I could also send messages, but they asked me for my ID. They asked me for my credit card. They did that to verify that I wasn't using a stolen credit card. I thought that was great. And they didn't say we do this to verify the stolen credit card. They said we do this to verify your identity. I think that was very transparent, that they wanted to know if Marcus is making a booking, then he should be using a credit card that says Marcus, but also he should have an ID that matches his face, just like a
Yeah.
hotel or any. Well, speaking of airlines, that's what they do. They look at your passport, they look at your face, and they match it. They see, oh, I think that's Marcus. Now, then during that procedure, they suddenly asked, or they reminded me, hey, you remember there's no parking here. However, we can sell you a spot at this parking lot or that parking lot, and you can do it right now. Just answer yes or no. And I think that's where, the amount of stuff you ask for and what you give in return, I got valuable information. I could have shown up and not known that there was no parking.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too many signs because it was clearly tailored to the type. It wasn't tailored to me personally, but the type of visitor who would go to that property. And it was tailored to the property, in this case, parking. But that could be, you want to book an event space, you want to us to book a restaurant, you want to have a bottle of champagne waiting in the room. You can upsell a lot of things there. And I was surprised they managed to upsell me on it, but they made it in a way so that the information that I got out of it was really good.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And that's where I think the guest experience as a property manager, if you just say, we know you already paid for this place and you're eager to get in, but instead of doing that, we're going to ask you a million questions and we're not going to tell you why. I think that's the worst thing you can do, because that's exactly what hotels are doing. When you check into a hotel, you've already paid for the room, but they're not going to let you get into the room, which is what you really want. You want to rest a bit, you want to get a shower, but no, instead they put you in a line. And the worst thing is you don't know how long you're going to stay there. And even then, they don't give any explanation. They don't explain to you why you paid for a shower and a bed, but you are going to stand 22 and a half minutes in a line. I think with my check-in experience with parking, I think they made it very clear that, hey, you're going to do this so that you don't end up disappointed in your stay. And I think that's the attitude that property managers should have. Check-in should provide value to the guests.
No, 100%. That makes complete sense. And especially with the ID verification stage, it's a bit of give and take, or take and give in this. I take your information, but I'm going to give you a purpose and the reason why I'm doing this. And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. These property managers come to us and say, well, I don't know, I'm worried of doing ID verification on my guest. We offer an ID verification process for a reason. First ID verification process is for your own level of security. There's so much automation and remote access these days that you really want to make sure that the person you're giving those keys to, so they don't have to meet you in person and stand in that line, is who they say they are. It is Marcus or it is Stephen. It is not a fraudulent transaction, that the person is the person taking the selfie in this case to verify their ID, that the person taking the selfie is that person in the document, and you can feel comfortable offering that level of access. And then what you're giving them in return is, if you say, look, if you go through the ID verification process, I'm going to give you complete flexibility on when you can actually access this. It's the same as the parking, but in this case, it would be complete flexibility and time management on when you want to go into the property. And I think it's really important to understand that, yes, the guest is unbelievably important, but also you as a business, you have to understand that the details and things that you actually ask from your guest are as equally important. You are a business at the end of the day. You have your own liability issues. You have to make sure that you're legally compliant. You have to make sure that if anything does go wrong, that you ask for the right amount of information from your guest to be able to combat that. And I think that's something that people are only starting to transition to now. Before, it was making the guest experience as easy as possible for the guest, which is great. But now it's also making it as safe as possible for you. But at the same time, just like the parking, you're giving them back some positivity out of you asking so many questions, or not even so many questions, just some basic verification steps, which is really, really cool. Really interesting, that topic. I think that's something we're going to hear a lot from in the coming 6 to 12 months, especially related to ID verification. Now, a lot more people are starting to offer remote access into their properties.
Yeah, that's right. I think this is the way to go.
Amazing. Marcus, we've been going for about 25 minutes now. So far, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have you got anything that you would like to ask or you would like to talk about?
Well, if anyone wants to see why Hostaway is the fastest growing solution in the market, just go in on hostaway.com and get a chat with our sales team. You can book your demo right on the website. Also wanted to let everyone know, if you have a question for me, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Is a good way to find me. You can Google for Marcus Hostaway LinkedIn, and the first result should be me.
Amazing, perfect. Yep, guys, and if you would like to contact Checkin and learn more about how we work with Hostaway, how we integrate into their PMS and channel manager, and how we can essentially help you offer an entire remote and digital experience for your guest, please feel free to get in touch. Marcus, this has been an absolute great chat. I've been wanting to pick your brains for a while around these topics. The insights you gave have been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time for having a coffee with Checkin. Even though I've been drinking tea, we'll count it as a coffee. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.